me start off by saying that I took very little joy out of this drawing. It was one of the most plagued drawing experiences I've had in recent memory. It was also the most specific request I've ever had. It is as follows: Star Fox and Falco in their outfits from Star Fox Zero, but also in long vampire capes that have tall collars. The request also asks that the whites of their eyes be turned red and that their irises be yellow with kitty cat pupils. The characters should also be drinking blood from goblets while grinning with large sharp fangs. The request also stated that the image should feature a full body pose for both, but that their tails shouldn't clip through the capes, but drinking poses aren't very dynamic and I thought it would be really boring and a lot of extra work, so I decided to go with a half body pose for both. That's what artistic license is for! But it wasn't the specificity that made it such a rough go. It was other things. So right away, it turned out that my tablet was acting really strange. I had to reinstall the drivers for it later because it was causing all kinds of ruckus, such as, but not limited to, resetting my desktop display resolution, adding spots where there shouldn't be, and not registering the eraser right away, causing me to make new and unwanted brushstrokes, choosing tools that I didn't select, and much, much more. Unfortunately, reinstalling the drivers didn't really fix the issues much, so I just had to work around them. When I first accepted this request, I thought, oh, fun! That's so specific and sounds like a real challenge! At the time, I didn't realize that those words would haunt me the way that they haunt teenagers in a horror movie. I'd never drawn these characters before, but that hadn't stopped me in the past. I certainly didn't expect the process to be so... rough. For some reason, I just couldn't get it to look right at all. Every stroke was off. Shapes weren't coming together. Proportions were off. The request haunted me in my dreams. At first, I blamed my reference. And let me just say, it's not super easy to find reference for a profile shot of these guys. At least not reference that's either not another artist's rendition of them, or B, that's not from a video game that makes them look all blocky and junk. So I turned to the only place I could think of to get the right images: Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Of course, I didn't have them unlocked because I just got the game and I don't really play it much. After using the excuse of getting better reference for Fox's profile to blow off a little steam, I managed to unlock him and get the picture I needed. Unfortunately, Falco was camera shy and not showing up, so I decided to just give up on that and stick with the little reference that I could find of him. Because of my many foul-ups and fudgery, I considered not keeping the recording of this one or starting over and pretending that it all went really well right from the get-go, with the exception of my tablet. However, I quickly came to my senses, realizing the importance of showing that things can be difficult and not everything works out super great all the time. That's part of art. That's part of the process. As an artist, you'll have days where you just can't get anything right, and it's super frustrating. You'll have days where you have a super clear picture in your mind and all your references laid out just right, but for some reason, it's just not coming together. And that's okay. That's normal. If you're an artist and any other artist makes you feel like having an off day is abnormal or makes you feel inferior, they're a bold-faced liar and you should throw acorns at them. Like this. So, because it was going so poorly compared to other things I'd done, I was starting to go a little crazy. But I kept at it because most of the time when I have a project, I do everything I can to finish it. This often concerns my loved ones, but they're overreacting. I'm fine. However, I once saw a video titled Fail Faster. I forget who made it, I should really look that up. I'll link it in the description if I can find it. But honestly, I really should take that to heart more often. And I'm trying. If you feel like a project is getting too overwhelming, even if you're not sure why, or that you should be able to finish it with no problem, and normally you might be able to, step away. It's okay to step away. In most cases, unless someone is paying you to get something done by a deadline, no one is going to care about it as much as you do. You're allowed to step away from your project, take a break, start over, or give up entirely. Pressure's only good for carbon and cooking. You're not going to get diamond quality work stressing yourself out and going half mad trying to get something finished. I really should take this advice to heart more often. I'm trying! Anyway, Anyway, you might notice that even after I get the lines drawn out, my relief is cut short when I realize that I drew the lines in black, totally disregarding my advice from the last video. But this was an easy fix. I just added a clipping layer to the line layers, kept the clipping layer set to normal, and filled the clipping mask layers with the color I did want the lines to be, which you may recall is a dark but not the darkest gray from my grayscale color palette. After that, I merged the layers together and no one could tell the difference. But I knew. I knew what I'd done. I finally got around to the part that was the easiest, filling in the colors. I do this on a separate layer so as not to disturb my lines. It also makes shading a little easier because you don't end up having to worry about cutting into your line art. I ended up coloring on the wrong layer a lot because my tablet was being weird, so I'd think I clicked on the layer, but it didn't register, which was fun. Seriously, after this, my computer probably thinks I have an addiction to the Control and Z keys. I also cut out a lot of the parts of the recording where I just sat and stared at the drawing in various stages, radiating pure hate and self-loathing from my gooey center. I was really one step away from turning into Jack Torrance from The Shining throughout this whole process. Honestly, the one thing that kept me going was listening to Queen's Don't Stop Me Now occasionally. Some artists will say that listening to music or having background noise can have a corruptive influence on your work. I actually have a textbook that explicitly states this. I can't find it right now because I'm moving my life around and everything's kind of everywhere. I'll post it in another video if I can manage to dig it up. Again, I'm going to go back to what I said in my previous video. Whatever works best for you is what works best for you. No two artists are the same. No two people are the same. So if listening to music or having a show on in the background helps you get your work done, go for it. Same goes for those of you who need silence to connect to your piece. When I was a kid, I had a lot of obsessive-compulsive tendencies that I worked really hard to break. As an adult, it's still hard for me to keep from returning to some of them, especially if I'm upset. One thing that helps me is to work on a project to divert my focus. However, when I'm upset, it's hard to keep that focus, so I'll sit for hours with the same song playing. Sometimes I even need to squeeze my thumb a little. Sometimes I get my best work done this way. I didn't notice it much since my focus is on my work, but I'm aware of these behaviors. The music helps to further distract me from my negative thoughts, and after a while, I don't even notice it anymore. In the end, I end up feeling better with a good chunk of my project done. So don't worry if you think you have some work habits that are a little odd. As you can see, the piece is coming along nicely, and you may have forgotten some of the details from the request, just like I did. Do you know what they are? You'll find out! So, coming to the end of the piece, I was as happy as I was going to be with it, which admittedly wasn't very much at the time. I've grown to like it now that it's finished, but at this point I resented it, so I wasn't sure what looked good. I ended up saving 3 versions to run by my sister to see which ones she judged the least. I'm just kidding. My sister is usually really supportive when it comes to my art. But it wasn't until I thought I'd finished it that something nagged me into rechecking the request. And that's when I realized what was missing. The eyes weren't right. They needed to be red and yellow kitty eyes, and I just drew them normal. So, reluctantly, I went back in and changed the eyes. I also considered making the full body poses while I was at it, but this had already taken so much out of me, and it still didn't really look any better than what I already had. So, I took the advice from the Fail Faster video to heart and left them alone. In the end, I was pleased with the result. I added the red highlights to give it more of a blood moon glowy effect. Hopefully, the next request won't be as time-consuming and I'll be able to work on a wider range of things this coming week. Thanks for watching!